I'm in the shop today. I'm working on the CX500, and I want to show you guys exactly how I make a custom radiator grill. And this is something that's really easy to do, it's fun, and it doesn't cost you a dime. Alright, now to start off, we are getting really close on this bike. And before I go ahead and put the fender on this thing, I need to take care of the radiator here. So obviously there's a scrambler, or with any bike you want a little bit of protection on the radiator. So right now we have this thing cleaned up, it's done, the bike runs, and I just need to kind of do some buttoning up. Now, as you guys know, if you have one of these bikes, you have a pretty large, not very attractive radiator grill and shroud. So what you're basically going to do is remove all of this, and we're only going to use the center section here. And I know, looking at it, you think this is some really nasty looking plastic, like this can't possibly look good. And I'm going to show you with just a few little mods, a little bit of work, in less than an hour's time, we're going to have this thing on the bike. It's going to be looking awesome, and it's going to look completely custom. So let's jump right into it. Now all we're going to reuse on this thing is just the center plastic section. So we can go ahead and take this apart. Get this little cover off the front. And this just comes out of there. And this is the piece that we're going to use. Now we have these little tabs right here, and these just happen to fit kind of up in the stock radiator and locks it in. So we're going to actually cut this thing down, and then we're going to cut basically like a bottom row right off of here. We'll have to modify the plastic just a little bit and shape it. Like the most challenging part is going to be down here, and this will actually fit into the stock radiator, and then we'll go ahead and clean this thing up and make it look as good as new. Now it's just a quick demo here. There's a little gap up here, and you can actually fit these plastic tabs within that. So that is going to be what locks in the top of the radiator grill itself, and then you can see we're just going to have to trim it down as carefully as we can to fit within the gap here. And then we have that same little ridge down below that we're going to take advantage of and trim the bottom part of this to fit within that. Now I've done this exact mod on the last couple, 2 or 3 CX500s I've done. It always comes out really clean, and it's super simple. Now with anything that's kind of plastic, this thing gets aged and oxidized, so it doesn't look that good right now. Now before I go ahead and cut the edges and put any kind of distortion in this thing with heat, I am going to just kind of clean it up a little bit. So I'm going to toss this in the ultrasonic cleaner real quick, and then I will just hand scrub everything with basically like WD-40 just to kind of get all the scaling off and just get it cleaned up that way. So I'm going to toss that in there. It's not going to look spectacular when I take it out just because I'm going to run it for like 5 minutes, but yeah, it's going to help get me started. Now before I start doing anything else, I'm going to go ahead and just cut the bottom off of this. That way it's easier to work with. So to do that, I am going to use my bandsaw, but you could use a hacksaw, a cutoff wheel, a dremel, even a razor blade if you wanted to. All of it is going to be possible. None of this is super thick plastic, but because I have this tool, I'm going to use it, of course. Okay, to clean this thing up, I'm going to just start with some fine Scotch-Brite and some WD-40, and that's going to knock off some of the scaliness. I've already had this thing in the ultrasonic just for like a few minutes, but this is going to help us get started. It'll look a lot better when we're done. Right, there we go. And I just did that there because I wanted to kind of keep the strength of this before we go ahead and cut the edges off, because, you know, putting the pressure on this thing can bend these down real easy, as you'll find. So we're just kind of knocking out some of the rough work first. And right now it looks a little bit glossy, but it will dry out. And there's chemical you can put on it that will make it look a lot better. But we're going to go one step further whenever we're done. Okay, we're back at the radiator, and we need to get our inside to inside width. So right here, I'm going to measure this. And I know it's going to be hard for you guys to see, but for me, that's 217 millimeter. Now, if you want inches, that's just past 8.5. And if you want carpentry terms, we're going to cut that at 8.5 and leave the line. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to cut it at 8.5. We're going to leave the line. And that thing should be at the perfect width. We want to cut it maybe slightly too wide, that we can kind of like file it and get it to fit in here just perfect. You'll see. All right, now it is time to go ahead and get some tape on this thing, and we will start marking out where we need to cut. So right here, I just need to get my center mark, and then we will build outward from there. If you want, you can go ahead and just measure in between here. So we got our center mark here. Our center mark there. All right, we have our center marked, and we know that half of 8.5 is 4.25. So if we measure out 4.25 from our center mark, that puts us just inside this line right here, this outer support. And it's the same on the top and the bottom, with no room to spare. So what that means is we're going to cut basically just this outer support off, and we're going to run right along the side of it, and that should be perfect. Now I'll try to get as close as I can to this, if not try to take some of it out, and that'll give us as much width as possible and allow us to kind of file fit it into shape or into place to make sure it has like a little bit of a tension fit. Alright, here you can see we have just like some kind of overhanging plastic and stuff like that, totally normal. We're going to have to clean that up, and what we will do with that is probably just use a razor blade to kind of get the edges grooved how we want. Now the challenging part of this is going to be to get the bottom part kind of how we need. So basically we're going to be eliminating this bottom bar and using this little tab, as long as this one, and then we're going to have to be doing some trimming to these inner two to make them kind of tuck behind that lower ridge in the radiator, and that is going to allow us to fit this thing in here perfectly, no mounts, and kind of bend it to get it in, and then it will just stay put. It's a really nice setup. Alright, I went ahead and kind of chamfered the top edge here because these extend out just a little bit. But you can see we can fit this in the top right there. and it will start laying in. Now these are a little bit wide, just like this much. So now is the time where it's going to come down to like a little bit of fine tuning with like a hand file or a razor, and just kind of getting all of these to just fit in here where there's a little bit of tension and then they don't move. So I'm going to spend some time with that. I won't bore you with that footage. It's just going to be whatever way you can make it work, and we'll be right back. Alright, a little bit of sanding and I got the edges fit, so this thing is kind of tucked in here, and now it's time to focus on the bottom. And like I said, we're going to lose this bottom row, so we'll scoot this up as high as it'll go, and then we can see exactly where we need to cut down here. So basically right where this starts to transition outward, we'll cut there. Same on this side. And we'll match that depth right here. And then once we get this cut, we have to kind of do a little L cut or an L relief on just these two inner tabs to match the outside, and it's going to be perfect. Alright, so we just cut the bottom piece off here, and now I can kind of show you how we want to do the little L. We want to mimic this little relief. You can see back here, these inner two, it's full width or full length, so we have to cut like a little relief right there to match the outside. And that's going to allow us to just kind of fit this thing into the lower channel in the radiator, just like the top. And that's how it stays in. Alright, we have this thing kind of trimmed up how we need it. I went ahead and just kind of touched up the sides. We're still not done with it, but we can at least do a trial fit on the bike. So of course, we just worked on these tabs. We need to make sure this thing fits. So we go down here, set it in the groove, and it fits great. So we know we have the top fitting, we have the bottom fitting, and we have the sides fitting. So let me go ahead and just kind of install this. I'll show you guys exactly how it works. So these are always a little tricky to get in. See how I did that there? You lock the top in, you kind of pull the middle out while you push the bottom in. It sits in the groove like that, and then you just work on kind of getting the rest of this fit in here. If you keep these a little bit wide and then you kind of rotate them up like this, get them popped in there, a lot of times leaves the ability to put a little tension on them, and that way they stay right where you put them. Now that's it for the install. We don't need to do any more work to this, but we're going to go a step further and make this thing look even better. So I'm going to remove it and I'll show you what we're going to do. Okay, so we know we cleaned this thing up, but due to age, it's never going to look brand new. So my trick for that, torch. So let me show you what we're going to do here. Keep this thing on a pretty low heat. Don't want to get too crazy with it. I know this is going to be hard to catch on camera. Just gently blow it over. And it'll kind of re-wet that top layer. Now that looks a lot better, but we're going to go one last step. I'm going to go ahead and put some mothers back to black on this, and that'll help just kind of give it that nice sheen, and it will look almost new. It will fit it on the bike for good. Mothers back to black. Good stuff. Alright, this is looking really good. Just got a few spots on the back. This thing's ready for final install. $0. Now that looks good. We could probably keep it like that, but I have one more thing for you, and that is a set of air scoops for the sides. Let me show you what I've made. So because we're eliminating the outer shroud, we need to make sure we direct a little bit of airflow back into the radiator. And this is just a stylistic thing. So these are just some aluminum 6061 plates that I've bent up and then painted. So, and they just bolt on the side of the radiator, just 2 screws there. And you can see you have a bit of a curve outward. That's just to direct airflow in. So very, very simple. You can make these things out of sheet metal, whatever. It just adds a little bit of style to the bike and allows just maybe a little bit more airflow to be guided in towards the radiator. So let me go ahead and put them on. All right, there you have it. Radiator grill is on, and we have the little fins on the side, which will be mounted permanently tomorrow with matching hardware. That is important. So this is a really cool mod. It's something I've done on the last few bikes, and it's simple, and it really doesn't cost anything. I mean, of course, you'll have a little bit of money in the guards on the side here, but other than that, you just have a little time invested in the grill itself, and it offers some protection to the radiator, and of course the fins help direct some airflow back through it. And yeah, this thing's looking really good. Let me know if you guys have any questions on the process. I'll link anything I used in the description. Which there really won't be anything actually. It's just like radiator grill, mother's back to black, and a torch. So anyway, yeah, really like how this project is coming along. And if you guys want to see more, there's of course a full playlist on this thing. So go check that out. Check some other videos out on the channel, and subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.